Should I leave this microphone here?
Yes, так тоже нормально.
This for the recording. For a better sound.
So it's okay if it's here. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girvaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Jaya Vijay Gauranga Dayal Nitai Vijay Gauranga Jaya Dayal Nitai Jaya Vijay Gauranga Dayal Nitai Vijay Gauranga Jaya Dayal Nitai Jai Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Shri Vijay Gauranga Dayal Nika Ki Jai Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Nika Gaura Pramananda. Hare Krishna. Thank you all for coming today. Hare Krishna. And traditionally, we are starting with a transcendental diary compiled by Hari Shauri Prabhu. I'm going to read a paragraph from this diary. Prabhupada received a welcome letter from one of his godbrothers, His Holiness B.S. Bodhayan Maharaja, today, Formerly, Sri Narayan Chandra Mukherjee, he informed Prabhupada that he had taken sannyasa from another god brother, His Holiness B.D. Madhava Maharaja, at the Sri Chaitanya Gaudiya Matha in Kolkata on January 21st this year. He visited our temple in Mayapur on Nandotsava, Srila Prabhupada's birthday celebration, and was impressed by the lectures given by two foreign disciples, one in English and one in Bengali. A very devotional spirit was expressed by them, he wrote. He had also been invited to speak, but declined due to suffering from high blood pressure, something Prabhupada himself has been troubled by in recent weeks. It is allowed to read only one paragraph. But then I just looked at the next paragraph. And there this Bodhain Maharaja, he glorifies Srila Prabhupada. He continues to glorify Srila Prabhupada. So this was the time when Srila Prabhupada started to be recognized by his god brothers, by some of his god brothers, not all of them. Yeah, just recently I heard from the memories of his disciples that they had a lot of discussions once his god brothers came to him, and he asked, Srila Prabhupada asked his disciples to leave, and they went out from the room, and his god brothers came in, a group of his god brothers came in, but the disciples, they were not very far, they were outside and they were trying to listen to what they were speaking, but they were speaking in Bengali, and they started to sometimes quite loudly express their arguments. I mean, Srila Prabhupada had an exchange of arguments with his god brothers, and actually what they were quarreling, so to say, about was their main complaint was that Srila Prabhupada was calling himself Prabhupada. Yeah, and Srila Prabhupada, he replied that I'm not calling myself Prabhupada. It's my disciples, they are calling me Prabhupada. What was the problem here? Because actually Prabhupada was the title of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura, and all his disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura used to call him Prabhupada. I mean Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura. And when Srila Prabhupada, our Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, started being called Prabhupada, these god brothers of his, they became quite outraged, so to say, that he was doing that, or he was being called Prabhupada. So that was their main complaint, and they were having some arguments about it. And many of them, they didn't want to help him, and he oftentimes mentioned that they were just jealous. He mentioned to his disciples, I mean, our Srila Prabhupada mentioned to his disciples that his god brothers were jealous of him. So he explicitly said that. But some of them, they were recognizing, of course. And among them was this Bodhain Maharaja. There were others also, some prominent Maharajas who also recognized him. And by the way, at least in that memory, the main argument of Srila Prabhupada was that I'm not calling myself Prabhupada. It's my disciples who are calling me Prabhupada. And he even asked one of his disciples to bring the book, and there on the book it was written that His Divine Grace, I see Bhaktivedanta Swami, but it was not written Prabhupada. But here I see that it is also written Prabhupada. So I don't know, maybe in the beginning they didn't write like that, I don't know. But actually, one interesting thing about it is that from the memories, from the I think it was maybe 1966 or 67, I don't remember exactly, but it was the first years of ISKCON. And I don't remember, I think it was a lady disciple, maybe Govinda Dasi, maybe someone else. They asked Shubhapada, is it okay if we call you Swamiji? They used to call him Swamiji, you know that, yeah. And but actually Swamiji is like not a very respectful name, so to say. It's like, hey Prabhuji, come and give me something, you know. Actually Ji, it's a respectful suffix, so to say, but usually you feel that it's not very nice if someone calls you Prabhuji. It's okay if it's your friend, yes, but if it's some newcomer comes, sometimes I saw these situations when some senior devotees, they distribute prasadam. In Kiev, like we have these, you know, I think you also saw this somewhere here also, that and well, at the Sunday feast we do like that here, yes. The devotees sitting in rows. And sometimes some senior devotees, they also distribute prasadam. And some people say, oh, Prabhuji, give me more. And these people are just, I don't know, this is their second or third Sunday feast or something like that. And they say to some leaders of our community, they say, oh, Prabhuji, who have been in the movement for 30 years. And they say, oh, Prabhuji, give me more. You know, and you hear this and you think, oh, it's not very nice. So the same was, they used to call him Swamiji, and I don't remember the exact words, I don't remember the exact details, but it was like one disciple, I think it was a lady disciple, asked him, and he said, well, actually, you can call me, I don't remember what he said, maybe Guru Maharaja, or Gurudev, or Prabhupada, or something like that. I don't remember if he offered the same, but and she said, Prabhupada, okay, is it, do you like the name Prabhupada? And he said, it's okay, yeah, it would be nice if you call me like that. And after that, this lady disciple, she told everybody that we should call him Prabhupada and not Swamiji, and everybody started calling him Prabhupada. So actually, he approved that, and it's not that they started calling him Prabhupada without him knowing that, and without his approval. So, but anyway, when he was quarreling with his disciples, but then it came to the point that in these arguments with his disciples, he asked them like, with his god brothers. Yeah, with his god brothers, he asked them like, do you know anyone else who opened so many temples? Or maybe he was saying this to his disciples about this quarrel, and he said like, do you know anyone else who opened so many temples, who was so successful in preaching in the Western countries and all over the world? If you know anyone else like that, it's okay. But so he meant he deserved that. He was humble. He was humble at the same time, very humble. But he was at the same time he was, he was asserting his position. He was asserting his position as an acharya and the founder of the movement. Also, it was very important because some of his disciples were getting under the influence of his god brothers. And these god brothers also started preaching something like, oh, he didn't give you everything, he's given only some beginning stages, and we will give you something more, and he's doing business, or he was successful in opening so many temples, it's only because he was a businessman in the past, while we were, sannyasis and everything. And actually, yes, Srila Prabhupada was a businessman. And he was not considered a preacher, like some renowned preacher in Gaudiya Math or something like that. He was a businessman. He was a grihasta, and he donated quite a lot to support the movement. But at the same time, how can you spread the movement being a businessman if you are not empowered by the parampara? It's not possible. And how can you attract so many sincere souls to the movement if you are not empowered, if it's just a business? Yeah, you can attract some disciples to some movement that spreads some mantra for money. But if it's just, voluntary service and since people are sincerely trying to make progress in their spiritual life, they are ready to abstain they are ready to reject any kind of sinful activity and everything like this. It's only possible if they are following some very empowered acharya. So the more, I don't know, at least in my case, it's like that. The more, maybe because I get older and you already start feeling this, breath of the old age, a little bit. And you understand how difficult, and it's not even difficult, it's almost, I don't know, unsurmountable. Like, it's impossible to do this. It's when you're 69 and you haven't ever traveled somewhere very far or abroad, and you go on a sea journey to America and start a movement. Well, it's just, I'm trying to not consider Srila Prabhupada, while he is definitely like that. Like he's a very empowered Shaktavesha avatar. But at the same time, he showed an example for us that we can follow. A real person. He had a family. He was doing business. He struggled in his life, in his material life, and then he struggled in the beginning stages of his, and not only in the beginning stages, but at the beginning stages also he was struggling, trying to preach, and it wasn't successful. Up until the point when the movement started to gain traction, to gain power in the West, he was also struggling. He was alone there. And do you know if Srila Prabhupada ever checked return tickets to India when he was in America? Did he check, or he was like ready to die in America and not return to India and never checked the tickets back? Do you know if he checked? He checked. He checked the tickets regularly, not once. He checked the tickets, return tickets to India. So it was a struggle, really. It was not like he came as a magician to America and now to click, I know that in 2 years I'm going to have a big movement. He knew that at the same time, I think. He knew that, he felt it, he was praying very sincerely to Krishna, and he was ready, to do anything and everything. And he was this famous prayer of his that I'm like a puppet, please do make me dance. But at the same time, he was a real person. He was checking the tickets. He had some doubts, it means. So it's a real person, and we are also like that. We can follow him. We shouldn't put Srila Prabhupada just like, oh, he's a saint, like in the Christian tradition. They put, oh, Jesus Christ, yeah, this is Jesus Christ, but I am a sinful person, I can do my sins, and then I can pray to Jesus Christ, and he will help me. But no, we have to follow in the footsteps of our acharyas, of Srila Prabhupada. We just don't have to, we shouldn't just commit sinful activity and then think that, oh, Srila Prabhupada will anyway save me. I heard stories from devotees who were dying somewhere after leaving Srila Prabhupada. But anyway, he came to them and he saved them, so no worries if I commit some sinful activities. We shouldn't think like that. We should try our best and follow in the footsteps of Srila Prabhupada. Yeah, what I wanted to say, I lost track of my thoughts, that the more I get older, so to say, and maybe not even older physically, but also hopefully a little bit more mature in my understanding of the Krishna consciousness movement, I see how I just I just can't even choose the proper word, how huge, let's say, to choose some simple word, how huge this act of Srila Prabhupada was. to spread the movement in the West. Because when I just joined the movement, okay, Srila Prabhupada did this, did that. Oh yeah, okay, it's all right. It was a miracle. He was some empowered personality, and that's it. But now you really start understanding how difficult it was, especially when you get some experience in Grihastha ashram, and you understand how you never have time to combine everything, you know. But at the same time, you know, yeah, just unbelievable what he did. And again, I want to emphasize this point, at least for myself. I try to look at him like that. It's not just a saint, some saintly, kind grandpa, you know, picture on the wall, just who always smiles at us and everything like that. No, it was a real person, and he was desperate at times. He was struggling, desperate, yeah, he was struggling. Sometimes he was angry. It was okay. He was a real person, you know, and he was fighting like anything to promote the mission of Lord Chaitanya and his Guru Maharaja. And he always remembered about his Guru Maharaja, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Okay. Maybe someone wants to add something here at this point. Okay, then we're going to read from Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 We are reading from Canto 5, Chapter 8, Text 23. Text 23 is again in plain Sanskrit. So I'm just going to try and read this Sanskrit verse. Not verse, but this plain Sanskrit. Kim va are acharitam tapas tapasvinyanaya yadiyam avani savinaya krishna saratanaya tanutaras subhaga shiva tamakara kurapada Pankti bhir dravina viduraturasya krupanasya mama dravina padavim suchayantyatmanam cha sarvata kruta kautakam dvijanam svarga pavarga kamanam devayajanam karoti. And now we are going to read the word for word translation. Kimba, what? Are, oh. Acharitam, practiced. Tapa, penance. Tapasvina, by the most fortunate. Anaya, this planet Earth. Yat, since. Iyam, this. Avani, earth. Savinaya, very mild and well behaved. Krishna Saratanaya, of the calf of the black deer. Tanutara, small. Subhaga, beautiful. Shivatama, most auspicious. Akhara, soft. Kura, of the hooves. padapanktibhi, by the series of the marks. Dravina vidhura aturasya, who is very aggrieved because of loss of wealth. Kripanasya, a most unhappy creature. Mama, for me. Dravina padavim, the way to achieve that wealth. Suchayanti, indicating. Atmanam, her own personal body. Cha, and. Sarvata, on all sides. Krita kautukam, ornamented. Dvijanam, of the Brahmanas. Svarga apavarga kamanam, who are desirous of achieving heavenly planets or liberation. Devayajanam, a place of sacrifice to the demigods. Karoti, it makes. Translation. After speaking like a madman in this way, Maharaja Bharata got up and went outside. Seeing the footprints of the deer on the ground, he praised the footprints out of love, saying, "O unfortunate Bharata, your austerities and penances are very insignificant compared to the penance and austerity undergone by this earth planet. Due to the earth's severe penances." Shri Shri Vijay Gauranga Dayal Nitai Ki Jai. Due to the earth's severe penances, the footprints of this deer, which are small, beautiful, most auspicious and soft, are imprinted on the surface of this fortunate planet. This series of footprints show a person like me, who am bereaved due to loss of the deer, how the animal has passed through the forest, and how I can regain my lost wealth. By these footprints, this land has become a proper place for Brahmanas who desire heavenly planets or liberation to execute sacrifices to the demigods. So, yeah, can you imagine the level of madness here? You know, not only he got attached at this point to the deer, but he started speaking some really nonsense words. And the purport, by his divine grace, Abhaya Charana Ravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. It is said that when a person becomes overly involved in loving affairs, he forgets himself as well as others, and he forgets how to act and how to speak. It is said that once, when a man's son was blind since birth, the father, out of staunch affection for the child, named him Padmalochana, or lotus-eyed. This is the situation arising from blind love. Bharata Maharaja gradually fell into this condition due to his material love for the deer. It is said in the Smriti Shastra, Yasmin deshe mrga krishnas tasmin dharman ivodhata. Interesting, in this Sanskrit, what do you think Krishnas mean? Yasmin deshe mrga krishnas. Mrga, what is mrga? Who knows the translation of this word? Mrga? Yeah. Actually, it means the animal, but very often it means the deer. One devotee, actually it's the name of Prabhupada's disciple. So it was the name given by Prabhupada. I think his name is Mrigeshwara. So actually Mrigas, it's not only animals, it's actually all living creatures. But in general, in Sanskrit, it means the deer or the animal in general. Mriga. Maybe remember this story of a hunter, Mrigari. Mrigari, it's because he was killing animals. Like Are, it means enemy. Enemy. You know, like Madhusudana is the killer of the demon Madhu. Ari Sudana is the killer of Aris, of enemies. And Mrigari, it means the enemy of all animals. So Mriga, it means animal or deer in general. And Krishna, Mriga Krishna. Yes, it means black. Yes, black deer. So Krishna, it also means black. The translation of this verse, the tract of land wherein the footprints of a black deer can be seen is to be understood as a suitable place to execute religious rituals. So you see where you can find these footprints of a black deer, there you can execute religious rituals. Also, I heard in the lecture of Bhaktivedanta Purnaswami Maharaj, and he didn't remember that in the lecture, so I'm going to quote him. He said that civilized people should live only where, and he didn't know that, and I'm repeating what he didn't know. He said that he didn't remember if it was where banana trees grow or where coconut trees grow. So civilized men live only there. And other places are occupied, I guess, by mlechas or something like that. Do we have banana trees here?
Not yet.
Do we have coconut trees?
Not yet.
You see, so we are waiting for this global warming so that these lands can become civilized, at last. Okay, anyway, so this is what Srila Prabhupada writes here, that he doesn't get too much into this in this particular purport, but in his previous and later purports, he explains a lot about this. Yeah, but what should be said here, that actually madness is not that bad if that is used in the Krishna consciousness. Because actually the highest, expression of love that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed, it was actually madness, It looked, at least, from the material point of view, as complete madness. Remember when he was rubbing his head against the wall, and blood was coming out, and he was doing that because he was completely mad in his feeling of separation. And actually, this is where our acharyas are leading us. You shouldn't preach like that to some newcomers, of course, because if you tell them, what is the goal of your movement? What do you want people to be like? And you tell them, okay, we want them to just go mad. So people are going to be shocked. They are shocked by us anyway. So, but if you even tell them some basic things like abstaining from some sinful activities, the 4 regulative principles, that is already enough for most people. It's like, oh my God, that is already considered crazy. Like there's one joke. I don't forget the exact wording. Maybe Rishi Kumar Prabhu remembers that. It's a Soviet joke, and they say like one guy comes to the doctor and he says, like, oh, I'm not feeling well, what should I do? And the doctor tells him, oh, you shouldn't drink alcohol. And he says, okay, and you also shouldn't smoke. Oh my God, this patient says, my goodness, well, that's too much. And he said, and also you don't have sex here and there with some, with some random ladies. And it's better actually to abstain from sex in your condition. And this guy says, I don't remember, it's put in some funny way, but this guy says, oh, why should I live then? Something like that. So what is the sense of life if you live like that? And that's what most people think, unfortunately. They are mad, but in another sense. Not in the highest sense of this term, but they are mad because of their material conditioning. And I would like to speak about that a little bit. I recently spoke also with Akshara Prabhu. It's a very wise and mature devotee. And by the way, someone asked me, I don't know, of course, you know the situation better than I do, but at least from my, might be kind of superficial point of view, I remember being asked about how to understand if we should imply some, use some critical thinking of our own, or just blindly follow someone. And I gave a recommendation, you should find someone who is really wise and who is really qualified and ask them. You should have this person in your reach, so to say, so that because sometimes gurus, it's difficult, to reach your guru. Maybe many gurus are more accessible, but many gurus are not accessible. And in that case, it's very important to find some senior devotee whom you could trust and whom you could consult. And from my opinion, I think from the point of view of some wisdom and knowledge of the Shastra, Akshara Prabhu could be a person like that. I don't know, maybe you know something about him that I don't know, but to me he seemed to be a very mature and very elevated devotee. And in many questions, I would say I would definitely beg for his mercy, to give me some guidance and consultation. So we discussed with him, and he told me, it's his opinion, not mine, that because he also spent some 11 years, as I remember, in Spain. So, and he said that there he realized how, when you spend some time in other countries, you realize how different material conditioning is in different countries, the mentalities of different places. And he could see German mentality from the side, so to say. And he understood that what was completely natural and okay for him while he was living in Germany, he understood that it was not okay, and that people may behave in a different way and more naturally, maybe in many regards. But at the same time, so he said that this is what he told me. I hope he will not chastise me for sharing this with you. But he said that according to his observations, here in Köln, at least, he says that almost like 50% of the people here are a little bit maddish, so to say. A little bit mad, you look into the eyes of people and they are a little bit mad. He said it was not his experience in Spain. He said people there are more kind of, are not so mad, not as mad. And he said in India it's also like that. And I also told him that in Ukraine it's also not like that. That people are kind of more stable, maybe not so mentally deranged. I'm not saying that everybody here, I mean, or 50, I didn't see this. I see that there are more kind of crazy people in the streets of Köln than I saw in Ukraine. That was my experience in Ukraine. But anyway, it was what I told him, that it's a paradox, but at the same time it's interesting to find an explanation to this. That in countries where you see a higher level of madness, you also see a higher level of organization. You know, because if you compare, for instance, Spain and Germany, yes, Germany is much more organized, and the material level and the economic development here is much better. And in Spain, you often may face a situation where you order some service and it's not done properly, or it's late, you know, or something is not as well organized as in Germany. And as I know, in the United States, I haven't been to the United States, but I heard many times that the level of organization is also high, but the quantity of crazy people is also very high. And there are many even crazy people in the streets, and it's not considered like something strange, you know. In Ukraine, it's like in Kiev, which is, you know, a huge metropolis, and definitely in Kiev there are more crazy people than in the suburbs or somewhere in rural areas, but we don't see so many crazy people. If you see some crazy person once, I don't know, in half a year, it's like, oh my God, what is that? But I heard about America, that there are so many crazy people in the street, and it's like, okay. They are not maybe crazy, some people say they are not crazy, they are just differently minded or something like that. So it's becoming, you know, like normal to be crazy or something. But at the same time, the level of material development in the United States is very high. And check the level of material development in Spain, it's lower. And the level of material development in Ukraine, much lower. And the level of material development in many regards in India, it's crazily lower, yes? But people, if you take people like in general, they are not crazy. They are very sane, very, very concentrated, and everything like this. How is it like that? I don't know how it works like that. I may only speculate that it's due to the fact that such a level of material organization is already too much. It might be just that it's already too much, this concentration on the material development. And this is why in Varnashama culture, the Vedic culture, the civilization was mostly rural. The cities were not big. And maybe remember that Shubhvara used to say, if a city is more than 100,000 people, it's already like crazy. It's maximum 100,000 people. As I remember, in Köln, it's around 1 million people or something. In Kiev, it's more than 3, 4, 5, no one knows, because so many people come and go in search of work. But it's just a crazy situation. These cities, they drain you. So in the Vedic times, so we have to understand what is the main goal of life here, and the main goal of civilization. To search after material things and get mad because of that. So, and try to develop the technology more and more and more, and think that, oh, we developed this technology and we are going to definitely get happy. And we develop this technology and we are going to definitely get happy. But it never happens like that. And people get mad because they get distracted from the real values. Because even from the material point of view, the real values are at least family values. Yeah, family values are very important. And in the Varnashama culture, it's not even the cult, I wanted to say, the cult of Dharma. It's just some basic premise of any, like, basic prerequisite, basic condition for any kind of development. It's dharma, that you have to follow your duties. and family duties, and in society relationships between different kinds of people, among different kinds of people, like different varnas, and duties of these people, that you can definitely rely on these people in their duties. This is very important. And when the closer society gets to the point where no one follows their family duties, or they are trying to follow but it's not considered very important, it's like you try this, you try that, and no one also follows their professional, occupational duties. Like people are told that you could become whatever you want. You could become, okay, today you're, I don't know, you're digging potatoes, you're a farmer, tomorrow you can be a construction worker, the day after tomorrow you can become a philosopher, the next day. So it doesn't work like that. People see that it doesn't work actually like that. But it's being promoted that you could become whatever you want. And also it creates a lot of disturbance. Even some people, especially from the elderly generation, they miss the times of the Soviet Union. I mean, people who were born in the Soviet Union, because there it was very fixed. You do this, you get this, and you get this. The choice was quite limited, but your mind was more peaceful. I mentioned in one of my previous talks that you could choose from the brown coat and the gray coat, the gray, brown or gray coat. So that's it. But at least your mind is peaceful. I heard the same stories from those who flee North Korea and go to South Korea. I read articles, like extensive articles about this, that many people, they are completely shocked, completely bewildered, and they want to go home to North Korea. Can you imagine? North Korea is everybody, we are frightened, it's horrible. But at the same time, for the mind, in many cases, it might be more peaceful. So this civilization of Varnashrama, it was very peaceful. Most people, even up until recently it was like that, but in those days, most people lived in the villages and their mind was very peaceful because of that. But here also, this example of Bharata Maharaja, who went completely mad. He started saying that this fortunate planet, has the footprints of the deer, and now because of these footprints, it has become a proper place for brahmanas to execute their sacrifices. It's completely mad, complete madness, but not madness because of the love of God, but madness because of his material affection for this poor creature, just some deer. And about the deer, one interesting story I would like to mention. Who knows Jayadev Prabhu from London? Maybe someone heard about him. He used to be some famous singer in one of these popular bands. It was not popular in the Soviet Union, but here they say it was popular. The Rubits. Maybe someone remember the Rubits. It was. So anyway, it was maybe in the 1970s when they were popular. They were not as popular as the Beatles or anything, but anyway, they were popular, quite popular. And he was a member of that group, of that band, and at a certain point in the 1980s, he got interested in everything esoteric, and he started doing regressions. This. Why I remember about this thing, because recently one devotee came here from Ukraine, and he is a Param disciple of Jayadev Prabhu. And he reminded me about this topic. It's a very interesting topic, and Srila Prabhupada also wanted devotees to preach reincarnation a lot, to find lots of scientific proof of reincarnation. So the stories that Jayadev Prabhu tells in his book, he wrote a book, are just very, like shocking in a way, and very interesting how karma works. And when he only started doing these regressions, it's when you by means of hypnosis, you put people into their past lives, because our minds, our subtle body actually remembers all our past lives. It's just in our current consciousness we don't realize that, we don't remember that. Only subconsciously we act, or we have some reactions that are coming from our past lives. Especially if someone has a phobia, like someone is afraid of height or fire or anything, it usually comes from your past life experience. When he only started doing that, he was not acquainted with Vedic knowledge. But gradually, when he was developing in his career as a past life regressionist, Jayadev Prabhu, yes, sorry. I'm talking about Jayadev Prabhu. And when he was developing in his career as a past life regressionist, he started reading Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. This is how he became a devotee. I guess he's a disciple of Shivarama Swami Maharaj. And he mentioned one story in his book, because he was under the impression, and this was what he was told by his friends or something, that soul gradually evolves from some more simple species of life to some more elevated species of life, and you never go back. And you never go back in your development. So if you become a person, if you become a human being, then you will never come back to some animal life. And that was his idea up until the point where he put one lady into regression. And his usual, actually, to tell you frankly, it was more than 10 years ago, I went through a regression by Jayadev Prabhu. Yes. But it was in a hall with lots of people. It was not a personal regression or something, but he tried to put lots of people in hypnosis, and it worked for really many people. And I also saw some stories, and it's very impressive when you see that, because it's not like you feel that you see some movie about someone else. No, you see everything, you understand that you are yourself. It's not anybody else, it's you. And this realization is very strong and very deep. But you see a different, setting around you, a different body. I saw everything from my eyes. Maybe some people saw something like a third person, but I saw everything from my eyes. Anyway, I'm not promoting. It's not necessary for anybody. For me, it was interesting just from the, so to say, from the point of view of a researcher of how it works. But it really works in a very intricate ways. Karma works in very intricate ways. So he put this lady into regression, and she remembered, and he asked her, what do you see there? And she saw that she was a horse. A horse. She was a horse, a black horse. And he was completely shocked, what? A horse? An animal? And he was interested, what was before that? Because a horse and now a human being, interesting. Yeah, it proved. I think it was maybe the first case when someone remembered in his practice, someone remembered the life of an animal, and he asked her, and he tried to put her in even a deeper regression to see what came before this life of a horse, and it was a life of a human being, and it was a life of a lady from England. From some Essex region of Britain or something, and she even started speaking like that. When people are put into regression, they even start speaking with that language, with that accent and everything from their past lives. Yeah. So she started speaking like that, and she said that she was living during the times of this industrial revolution in Britain, when not everybody, but a lot of people were leaving their farms and going to the cities. But actually, she said it was hell. They thought that they were coming for some better life. they are leaving their farms and that they are going to get lots of money in the city, but it was hell. They actually what came out of it. Many of them, they were Vaishyas, yes, they were farmers, and they came to the city and they started to be employees. They became like Shudras, so to say. So and the conditions of life were also not very nice. So what she ended up with, she became a maid servant for one crazy lady. This is what she said. This is what she remembered. And she lived like that for 60 years. She was a maid servant for some crazy lady. And she remembered dying in complete loneliness at the attic floor. Cherdake. Yes, at the attic floor of that building. And she was completely lonely. And she was dying, and she remembered the days of her childhood at the farm and the black horses, how beautiful they were. And she was dying, and she was remembering her younger years and the horses, and she became a horse in her next life. So that's of course, you may not believe this or whatever, but it completely coincides with what we learn from the Shastra. Completely coincides this experience. So we could get bored. And he also later he explained many other cases, like a boy, he didn't want to eat meat, and his parents invited Jayadev Prabhu. They didn't know that he was a vegetarian already at that point. They invited him and said, "Oh, our child doesn't want to eat meat. What happened to? We don't know the reason. There is no obvious reason for that." And he put this boy in regression in the presence of his parents, and this boy remembered that he was a sheep. Yeah, he was a sheep, and he was killed, of course, by people later in his life. And this is why he was a vegetarian from the very beginning. So many things like that. So it's real. It's very real. It's not just some stories about Maharaja Bharata and the deer. It's very real. It works. Yeah. And of course, I want to end with this very famous verse from Srimad Bhagavatam about Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajatyante kalevaram tam tamivai ti konteya sadatad bhava bhavita. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. So, yeah, in the purport, Prabhupada gives the example of Maharaja Bharata, of course. So, and in the purport, Prabhupada also says that if in one's present life one lives in the mode of goodness and always thinks of Krishna, it is possible for one to remember Krishna at the end of one's life. Yeah. What chance do we have in such a case if we have to remember Krishna at the end of our life? So, especially with this kind of civilization that we have now. This civilization is aimed at some vague and ununderstandable goal of material development, that we are going to develop and develop and develop. And what is the goal of this civilization? Whereas the Vedic civilization and Varnashrama civilization, it was simple, but it was simple because it was meant for the upliftment of any society member. Whoever enters the body of a human being at any level, at a very simple level, he is given some simple role, but he serves some people who are more conscious, and these people who are more conscious in their turn, they serve people who are even more conscious, and later they serve you come to the point where everybody serves Brahmana Vaishnavas, who lead the whole society to Krishna. So it's like an elevator, to Krishna, gradual elevator to Krishna. And now we just remember about cars. We remember the makes of cars, you know, some models. You see that car and you remember the year of production of this car, you know. This is the, yeah, I know, this is some BMW, 2007 BMW, yeah, I know. So things like that. I sometimes notice that in my head and I understand, my God, what is there in my head? So we can only hope, in this case, that Shubhupada will be merciful, and somehow or other our Parampara will be merciful, and our Guru Maharaja will be merciful, and they are going to save us and create some auspicious conditions for us to leave our body so that we can remember Krishna and not some nonsense promoted by our current civilization. Yeah. And the only way how to avoid this is to live in village communities with full culture. And when you every day you have Mangalarati, because here at the temple it's Vaikuntha, definitely. But you go out, especially this street, I don't know, some special street maybe. Maybe there are worse places here in Köln, no. But anyway, so it's like you see some not very nice things. And here at the end of the street I saw some dead bodies. I think it was either pigs or cows, or I don't know, from some truck. Even in Ukraine I never saw that, but here it's like, because these guys who live here, they are doing that. So horrible samskars. But anyway, so the only way we should go is, as Shubhupada wanted, to create these communities where we can live pure life with proper samskaras. Because not everybody is a Paramahamsa who is ready to see, you know, all these sinful activities around us and still be very elevated. We are to a certain degree all like that, you know. We see so many sinful activities around us, but we remain with devotees. But at the same time, it's much easier to do this on a larger scale for ladies, for children, for everybody in village communities. So hopefully we will be blessed, and someday also Köln Temple is going to have their own or your own village community. Yes. And our city temples will develop, we'll all have some village communities, and city temples will be like preaching centers, very powerful preaching centers, which they are already, actually. Yeah, thank you very much. If you have any comments, questions, or anything. Hare Krishna.
Just a small comment, because you were saying you have differing cultures, and from Vishwa Prabhu, his parents, they were coming to visit him from India, and he told me on Sunday feast we were speaking a little bit, and then he also told me when the parents were landing in Germany, and then he showed a little bit around in Cologne, they were totally shocked. People are drinking, smoking, the girls running around half naked, kissing on the street, and it's completely...
Yeah, and he's coming from Delhi, I guess, he told me. And Delhi, I haven't been to Delhi. Maybe they don't have this level of degradation at this point.
As I was saying, they have it also, but they do it in some places. It's a little bit more hidden, not so obvious, like you can see it on the street also.
Yeah, because here in our Western civilizations, it's considered that, you know, if you're a cultured person, you go and drink, you eat meat and everything. Maybe there it's like only uncultured people do like that. Might be.
За это время, пока я здесь нахожусь, я видела столько замечательных людей, которые улыбаются, которые здороваются. Вот так с прохожими идем, просто здороваемся. Это дедушки, которые там, мне внучки своих дедушек катают, да, которые ухаживают. И хочется быть благодарной в той местности, где ты живешь. И Шрила Прабхупада говорит, вы можете одухотворять, мой духовный учитель, одухотворяйте, где вы находитесь, своим личным примером. Потому как если будет много позитива, негатив, он растопится. И я очень часто слышала о своей стране, о Украине, что она такая ужасная, все ужасное, все сумасшествие. И в итоге там война. Очень хочется, чтобы мы ценили то, что есть.
Hare Krishna. I will not be able to translate everything because it's a large passage, but Mataji is saying that we should be grateful that she saw some nice examples how people here in Köln are smiling and they have good relationships with their relatives also, like children, grandchildren, and how we should be grateful to this place where we are, and with how we should also try and elevate this place, because the more positive energy we invest, the less negative things we have around. And also she said that like in Ukraine we heard a lot that how Ukraine is bad, it's such a bad place, all people are aggressive or something, and now we have a war there, so we should promote something good around us. This is what the Mataji is saying. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Shubhapada ki.